Okay, Grandpa, what's your full name and date of birth?
My full name is Ronald Leon Jones, born March 10th, 1934.
All right. Where did you grow up and what was your town or neighborhood like?
It was awesome. I grew up in Ogden, Utah, and yeah, the town was really cool.
Okay. What was your first job and what did you learn from it?
My very first job was with my neighbor across the street, Mrs. White. And well, I learned how to fill a stoker with coal, and I learned how to take the clinkers out with a special tool, like a pair of pliers, only on a long stick. And you twisted the handle, pick up the clinker, bring it over, put it in the bucket.
All
And
right.
those that was really hot, and it didn't burn the bucket, but that was a way cool thing to learn. But also, that was my winter job, and the summer job was mowing her lawn and picking weeds. And yeah, that was a good experience for life.
All right. How was love shown in the home you grew up in?
The love,
How was love shown in the home you grew up in?
well, heck yeah. Everybody loved each other. We had a sister, the oldest person, Laura, and five brothers. And I can't remember us ever fighting.
What were your brothers' names?
Well, it started with myself, Ronald,
Yeah.
Larry, Dick, Scott, and Henry.
Okay. Um, what was your childhood home like? And do you remember your room?
I didn't have a room of my own because our house was small. We had one bedroom. My mom and dad slept in the big bed, and I slept on the top bunk that was against the wall. And Larry and let's see, yeah, Larry and Dick slept on the bottom of the bunk. And my sister Laura slept on the couch in the dining room, which was a big open room next to the living room. So it wasn't like we had a lot of privacy.
In the summertime, I think one time we were hunting, you told me you slept on the back patio or like a porch.
Oh, yeah. Once in a while, if it was summer and nice and warm, there was a bed out there, and I was able to sleep out there, and it had a screened in instead of windows. So we had a nice cool breeze during the night.
Mm-hmm. Um, who were you closest to in your family and why?
Probably my sister Laura, because we just were really good buds.
um, what games did you grow up playing?
Monopoly mostly. And after I got a little older, we started playing cards. We played uh, blackjack, and that's about it.
Did you have a favorite toy or stuffed animal?
Let me think. I don't know. I think maybe my very favorite was my BB gun.
Every boy's favorite toy. Um, let's see. Let's kind of stay on that subject, even though it's not on my list of questions. Tell us about your soapbox derby experience.
Oh, that was awesome. My dad kind of suggested that I do it. And I thought, whoa, this is a really great idea, Dad. So I went down to register, and they said I had to have a sponsor. And one thing I had to do was buy the kit that's $35. The kit included the four wheels and two axles. And I got that from Browning Chevrolet. They're the people that dispensed the kits. Well, they said you need to get a sponsor so that you can have the sponsor pay for your kit. So I went down first of all to okay, let's see what it was. The I can't remember the name of the place. I'll come back to that. But I finally went to South Washington Furniture, and they were all for it. They thought it'd be great. The first one said, "Well, how much experience have you had? Did you race last year?" And I said, "No, I didn't." And they said, "Well, we've got to have somebody with experience." So I thought, okay, well, I'll go somewhere else, and that's how I went to South Washington. And they gave me the $35, and I went over to Brownie Chevrolet, and I picked up my kit and I took it home. And that's when my dad got with me, and we started rapping about different ways to do things. And in the kit was included instruction manual, and the instruction manual had pictures. In fact, in the centerfold, there was a picture of the winner of the last Soapbox Derby standing straddled over his car. So I got a good idea of what the winning car looked like. But I thought, well, I can make mine even better, and that's the most important.
Mhm.
So anyway, Dad and I sat there and talked about it, and I kind of made a sketch of what I thought it ought to be, and he approved that. And one thing about it though, nobody else was allowed to work on your car. You had to do all the work by yourself. But my dad was able to tell me things and give me ideas, and he talked to all of his friends down at work, and they all ganged up on all of the ideas that we might be able to put together. So um, after my dad and I talked about the way to do it, we had a little shop in the back of the house, and in the shop we had a jigsaw, and I was only 14 years old, but my dad said, "Hey, I'm going to teach you how to use this jigsaw so that you can cut out the pieces to laminate them together to make a shell for your car." So he did, and I did that, and I never cut my finger at all. Never.
That makes one of us.
And so the way the car was is a great big slab, like 1 inch thick board for the bottom. So I made a shape of it. It was kind of like the shape of an airplane. So it was very dynamically shaped, starting from the front and then taper out and then taper back in for the back. Then I proceeded to cut these little pieces of 1 by kind of scrap wood, because we had a limit on what we were supposed to spend.
Mm-hmm.
So I used scrap wood, so it didn't cost me anything. And I cut all these little pieces and just I used paint for glue, because they were the old cans of paint, so they didn't cost anything. And then put glue on each piece, then nailed it to the bottom board. And then I just kept building it up as if it was a bunch of bricks. And I kept shaping it different until they were smaller and smaller. Then they got to the top, and then I put one uh, kind of wider board across the top to finish it off. And then my dad had this really cool sanding thing that hooked onto a motor. It was a flex shaft with a sanding pad on the bottom of the flex shaft, and a little handle to hold on to. So we got that rigged up, and I just sanded and sanded and sanded until it rounded off all of these little steps of the shape of the wood, till finally it was nice and smooth and really, really nice. It had a barely big enough opening in the top for me to slip down in, and it had a brake on the bottom. One of the suggestions it had in the manual that you could kind of step on it and just stand up, but not really stand up, but push your feet down on it to make it slow your car down. I just put a piece of a rubber tire on the bottom so it wouldn't wear out the wood.
Mm-hmm.
And the steering was just this kind of like the same as the back, but this back was bolted on solid, and this front was bolted with one bolt in the middle, and then a steering wheel on a pipe that went down to the bottom, and the pipe was hooked onto cables for both sides of the front axle. So when you turned it one way, it pulls. Let's say you turned right, and it would pull the right axle toward you. That made it go right. Turn left and pull the axle toward the left, and it made you turn left. So all of this was very, very well planned out and put together. So when I got to the painting part, I thought, I got to keep the budget down. So I'm just going to mix up a bunch of paint my dad had. He had some stain. It was kind of maroon, and he had some white paint. And I mixed those two together, and it turned out kind of mauve color on the pink side. And I thought, oh, that's kind of not awesome. But you know what? It really did look good. So I painted the car with that mauve colored paint. And my main sponsor, because they picked the newspaper company for the city as your main sponsor for the Akron trip. So that was Ogden Standard-Examiner. So my dad helped me with his projector, put a sign of the top of the newspaper under the projector and projected onto the side. And I painted Ogden Standard-Examiner using that as the pattern.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to paint both sides of that. And then they came and took pictures of me standing on there for the newspaper. And I thought that was quite a...
That was after you won Utah, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Well, wait.
Because is this before you went to Ohio?
Yeah.
Okay, but it was after the Utah races had already happened.
That they took pictures after that. Oh, I think it was, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the Standard came and took pictures of it after, because the first sign that I had on the side was South Washington Furniture, because they were my Ogden's
sponsor.
So yeah. So as we proceeded, well, that was the building of it. What was the next question?
What happened after? So you built it, and then how did you win the Utah part of the soapbox derby competition?
Okay. The track that we raced on was 33rd Street, and it's real steep, and they built a ramp at the top that the cars were placed on, and there was a little flapper in the front that the wheels rested on. So both cars, there were two cars racing at that time, and so both cars were resting on this little ramp, or the flap. And when it was ready for them to go, the person released the flap, and both cars proceeded to roll down the hill. And lo and behold, I was the first one to hit the finish line every time I raced. So I won the race in Ogden. And I was really a shy kid back then. I, didn't want to hardly make a big deal out of it, but the whole city did. They made a big deal out of it. They took me to the radio station and had me interviewed by the announcer at the station. And when they asked me the first question, I answered yes by nodding. They answered the second question. I shook my head because didn't want to say it out loud. So, and so finally, they said, "You're on the radio. You need to speak your answers." So I finally decided, oh boy, this is really okay. Here we go. And then they asked me all these questions again, and then I was able to actually open up and tell them all about it and what I thought and how cool it was and how neat it was that I was going to be going to Akron, Ohio to race in the national final races. And uh, that was awesome. And we rode out. I had to have a chaperone. So one of the officers in the police force, his name was Sergeant Olson. He was my chaperone, and he was about twice as big as I was. But we got along very well. We had lots of conversations on the way out to Akron, and we loved it. And he had a nice big hotel, I guess, when he got there, and he put me in the hotel where all the rest of the kids were. Every boy and girl. I mean, no girls were in it that back then. I don't know if they are now, but I was rooming with a boy from Denver, Colorado, and another one from Macon, Georgia. He was a tall black kid. And in the middle of our conversations, when we were getting to know each other, this black kitty says, "Hey, you all guys sure talk funny." I thought, okay, well, we're from the same area almost, so yeah, we have this way of talking, and I like the way you talk, y'all. And so that was fun. We were up on kind of a high floor, and kids were spitting out the windows. And so oh man, this was really a highlight of my life because when we first had the first activity was we went to a theme park that was really awesome. They had little car rides and boat rides up and down channels, and it was quite interesting. And the day before we went on that, they said you guys, if you want to go to where the cars are staged, you can go down and work on your car if you think it's necessary. Well, I didn't think that anything of it. I thought, well, my car worked fine. Why? I don't need to repaint it. I don't need to do anything. So I don't need to go down there to the thing and work on my car. And thought, okay, well, when the race time came around, we all went down there and they had our cars lined up, and when it was your turn, they helped roll your car out onto the ramp, and you get in the car and you're ready, and then they release the car. But this time, instead of 2 cars at a time, there were 3. I was in the middle, and my buddy that I roomed with, it was from Denver, he was in my left, and another person we didn't know was on the right. And they pushed down the, what do we call
The
it?
flapper.
The lever or the stopper. And all 3 cars started down the track. And my car started veering off, and there were lanes. We had to stay in our lane. my car veered to the left and across the line. I tried to get it to come back and across the other line, and I was weaving back and forth all the way to the bottom, and I came in last. I was devastated, thinking, oh man, if I would have only gone down and checked it. Because what happened on the way out on the train, you know how when the train goes down the tracks, it goes do 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 every time it hits a joint? Well, that do do shook the train enough that it made my steering come loose because they were all held on by turnbuckles, and I guess the turnbuckles just, even though I put wires around them so they wouldn't, they still, my steering wires must have stretched or something. I was so bad. Even the people back home, I felt, oh, now how am I going to tell them? Oh, this made me so sad. And well, you win a few and lose a few. And I still am very happy that I was in the Soapbox Derby and I had that experience, because that was the one I won. And that's also the one I lost. Okay.
All right. Did your family have any special traditions or routines? And do you know how they came about?
Well, my mom and dad used to go deer hunting together in the 34 Ford. And when I got old enough, they bought me a rifle, 30-30. And my mom was tired enough that she didn't want to go anymore. So my dad took me and we went out over this really muddy road. My dad had to put the chains on the car. There were funny little chains that wrapped through the axles, and the axles were spokes on the 34 Ford. So these little belts went through the spokes and hooked on. So there's 3 chains on each of the back wheels. So we were able to make it through this mud, and the road was called Pissant Flats. And that was a real trip, going across Pissant Flats in the 34 Ford with my dad. And so, we got to know each other real good doing that. And then when we finally got to the campsite, Gary, my uncle, had the tent and the little cots. We had folding cots in this bed, and we had a potbelly stove. We were living like living in the Taj Mahal in that big old tent, and it was fantastic. We had an outhouse that one of the guys built. I think my dad built it. No, Gary built it, and it had those hexagon posts, those wooden hexagon posts in the side with a pin on the bottom. So like a 4x4 piece of plywood, and these posts went down into the corners of the plywood. And then it wrapped with a tarp all the way around, and then it just had a flap you open to get in, and a 5-gallon bucket with a board on the top that hinged, that you could sit down. And I thought that was quite unique, and I just loved it. As a side thought to that outhouse, I decided I wanted to invent something, and this is later on when I was in high school. I thought, well, you know what? I'm gonna redesign the outhouse and have it so that I can be able to sell them. And so I copied most of what it was, only jazzed it up a little bit with metal posts instead of the wood posts and so on. So I built one, and on the side of it, I thought, you know what? I'm going to paint something on the side so it has a name. And thought, well, I think first of all, I'll paint a moon because that's typical of an outhouse, right? This is the outhouse here. And then over on the other side, I'm going to say, way to go.
That explains your business name.
Yeah. So when we finally opened the business, we thought, well, you know what? We ought to name it Way to Go. So that's the name of our business, Way to Go Incorporated.
He named his business after the outhouses that he invented when he was in high school. That's awesome. Never heard that story before, but that's awesome. Do you know how your parents met?
Let me think. My mom lived in Minden, Nebraska. My dad lived in Salt Lake with his siblings and mom and dad. My dad lived up on top of 3rd Avenue in Salt Lake, which used to be both ways for traveling up or down. Now they fix it so you couldn't go up anymore. But back then, the 34 Ford was kind of on the last leg, and when he had to go up the hill, he had to get a run at it and buzz up the hill until he got to the driveway, and then hurry and turn in and try to get up the driveway before the car wouldn't go anymore. Well, that's where my dad lived, and so my dad and my mom were not in the same town. So now I got to figure out, how was it that they did meet? Sure, I can't remember.
That's okay.
Don't know if I ever knew.
You've told me this story before on the hunting, and I'm excited to actually get it on camera. Tell me how you met your wife, my grandma.
Okay.
It was on the telephone.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Oh boy, I kind of forgot. Right. It's not that I just forgot. It's because I'm 91 years old and my mind is starting to shift.
Yep.
Well, anyway, one day, my sister and I used to do this a little bit. And so I got on the phone and dialed a number that I guess I knew it was going to be busy. And when the busy signal was on, you could hear this thing go bzz, 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 bzz. And then in between the buzzes, there would be somebody talking, and they would say, well, they'd have a conversation even. But I've decided, well, I'm going to say, bzz, 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 what bzz, is bzz, your bzz, number, bzz, bzz. And then Bonnie said, my number is whatever it was. I can't remember what it was back then, but anyway, so we both hung up, and we actually said, okay, hang up, and I will call you. So I called her, and she sounded so cute. I thought, wow, this is a really big deal. So I found out where she lived, and I had her phone number. She lived out in Wilson Lane. She lived in a house smaller than ours with 5 brothers. So there was Bonnie was the oldest of all the siblings, and she had 5 brothers. My sister was the oldest, and she had 5 brothers. And I thought, wow, what a coincidence! This is crazy. how could it be? So by then I had a different car because my dad thought the 34 Ford was on its last leg, and he wanted to get me a later model, and so we bought me a 37 Chevy. And I wish I'd have kept the Ford and not bought the Chevy, but hey, that's okay. Back on the thing, I started the Chevy and took off, went down to see Bonnie. And when you go to Wilson Lane, you have to go across the viaduct west of Ogden and turn right after you get over the viaduct, and it drops you down a little hill, puts you down on the road that runs out to Wilson Lane. So it goes over the tracks where my dad-in-law used to work as a carman. And so once I got over the tracks, I could get to the hill where we went up the hill and into the driveway, and that's where she lived. So then we got to know each other real well, and we had lots and lots of fun doing things like going to Lagoon and even dancing at Lagoon and stuff like that. So I'm glad that we learned how to dance in elementary school, because Miss Corey was really good at that. She wanted to make sure that we knew the fine things in life. so anyway, I got to know Bonnie's brothers, and we had fun together too. And we even end up hunting with her dad, Art Butler. So that was really fun.
Do you remember any dreams or aspirations for your future from when you were in your teenage years?
Well, I had some more jobs that were the ones that prepped me for the next one, and had another one, and prepped me for the next one, and had another one, and that prepped me for the next one. And those were really, each one of them was really good jobs. The first one was after doing my yard work and stuff with Mrs. White, was with West Jewelry. West Jewelry, my dad happened to know these two guys, Dick and Robert West. So he sent me down to interview with them, and they thought I was a cool kid. So they hired me. And my first job was mopping the floor and washing the windows. And then they added to that I was to clean the silver, all of the silver in the little boxes. And, there's a whole set of silverware in a silverware box. So they showed me how to do it. There was a crock underneath the sink in the back room, and it had cyanide solution, part water, part cyanide, in this crock with a little wooden lid. Said, okay, here's the tray. It's a little open, made out of mesh. So you take all the silverware out of the boxes, put them in this little mesh thing, and then dip the mesh thing into the crock and leave it in there for like 5 minutes. And then you take it out and let it rip off, and then rinse it in the sink so that all the cyanide solution comes off the silverware. But it was so awesome. It only takes a week to make the silver tarnish kind of bad. And people that buy it, they have a problem with trying to keep it tarnished by rubbing it with some kind of solution with the rag in a solution. It takes it off. Well, when I had to get it out, I had to rinse it out in the sink and then dry them by hand, and then put them all back in the box. And there was probably 15 demonstration boxes out on the rack. So that took me pretty much of the morning. Okay, after doing the silverware, I was talking to the watchmaker. He's the one that cleans and oils the watches and makes them all work again, because they, watches just get a little bit old and dry and don't work too good. So he's the watchmaker and very, very good at it. And he had to fix clocks too, but he didn't like fixing the clocks. So he asked me if I wanted to do it. And oh yeah, I really like to do that. And so he gave me the tools, the little pan that had a lid on it that had the acetone, I think it was, that cleaned all the oil and the old dry stuff off of the clock moving parts, and then blow it off, then oil all of the little moving parts, each one of the pivot points, and once that's done, put it back together, and then wind it up and turn it on, and lo and behold, working perfect again.
Is there someone that you idolized in any time during your life?
I'm trying to think. I wasn't really into sports much, so I didn't have anybody that I thought was a really good football player or really good this or that. So no idols that way. Um, I guess it wasn't until later in life when I had kids and grandkids, and my grandson Joshua Jones played hockey, and I thought, you know what, he's really a good hockey player. So maybe I would consider him one of those.
You make me cry now. Guess that probably means I'm the most interesting person in your family tree too.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you experienced let's see, did you experience something traumatic that you now believe helped you become who you are today?
Well, I probably had a lot of those. The one, when I was working at Williamson, no, when I was working at Motor Mercantile Company, that was my second real job. The first, no, my third, because the first was um, the one I told you. What was it?
With the lady across the street and then the jeweler. Those are the two jobs you told us about so far. Working for Mrs. White.
Yeah, Mrs. White was the first one.
And then the jeweler, the West
The
Jewelers.
jewelry was the second one. Now my third one was Motor Mercantile Company. Okay. At Motor Merc, I graduated from one step to another, to another, to another as well, like I did at the jewelry store. At first, I was the driver delivering parts. Then they brought me in and said, you can do this job too. You can still deliver parts, but you can work on the counter if you want to. So I pulled parts off the shelf and gave them to the customer, whatever he needed. And there was a guy named Jim Smalley that was the counterman. He was the ace, man. He was really good. He was a tall guy with a gray beard, and he could. Oh, I was so amazed, because all the way in school, I never learned how to add that I really felt good about. So when I added, I did it like if you were adding playing cards. There was all the numbers, and I would say, okay, a 5 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A 6 would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I could count to add. So if I wanted to do 5 plus 6, it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, 5 and 6 is 11. Well, I didn't realize it, but I had all but 2 of them already memorized in my head. I didn't even use that because I didn't think I knew it. So anyway, one day when I was adding to total up a thing for the customer, that's how I was doing it, and I thought, ooh, people are looking at me. And I watched Jim Smaley do it, and he would go 6, 11, 14, 20, 22, like that. I thought, oh, okay, that's good. I got to learn how to do that. So I went home that night, and I only didn't know the 9s, 9 and 7 and 16, and they were the hard ones. So I did them one after another, till I had them all down. So the next day, when I added up the columns, I went just like Jim did. I do, and I thought, oh man, that is so cool. But anyway, I might have deviated from that last question.
That's
So
okay.
what was it?
It was asking if there was anything traumatic that you experienced that helped you become who you are today.
Okay, that could have been one for sure.
Not knowing how to add and learning how to
learning how to add. That was quite traumatic.
Let's see.
But I was going to tell you another one that helped me get to another job, and that was when his name was Bud Johnson, I think, at Williamson Body and Equipment Company, came to Motor and one of my new jobs there was installing windows and windshields and cutting the glass. I had to cut glass by laying the glass on a pattern and using a glass cutter and following the pattern. That was hard at first, but I caught on to it really quick. And so while I was working there, a guy came in from Williamson, this Bud Johnson, and he wanted a window in the back of his little 62 Chevy coupe. So I installed that for him. And while I was doing it, he was kind of talking, rapping and stuff, and said, "Hey, is there anything that you would really be interested in if I happen to be, or well, I don't know how he put it." He said, "I'm the personnel supervisor at Williamson Body and Equipment Company, and I think if you're interested, what is it you really want to do in life?" Because he felt like this is kind of a mundane thing.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, well, when I was in school, I had machine shop practice 2 hours a day for 2 years, and I had drafting in my senior year, and I loved both of those jobs. He said, "Oh, we have an opening for a draftsman. I'll have you come down and talk to Claire Williamson, the owner." So I did, and Claire was impressed with what I had tell him about my drafting. She said, "Okay, if you want to come on in, we'll put you in the tool crib for about 6 weeks, I think it was. And then you can go in drafting with Don Laritz, and he's the other draftsman, and we just can't keep up with one man. So you can come in and you guys can team up and pick whatever you want to do, and we'll get you going. So I've been in the tool crib and learned a lot of stuff about making trucks and trailers by what I had to give out to the tool guys, or the guys that were doing the jobs out there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then Claire called me in, and we started my drafting job, and that was really awesome. I drew up the very first 4-deck cattle trailer. You could take the layers out and take 2 decks of cattle, or put these little, well, there's hinges on the side that fall down. Then you put the decking, is what they called it, on top of those hinges, so it made decks for the sheep. So then you could load in 4 decks of sheep. Well, I thought that was quite unique that I was able to draw that and have it built and it worked. So that was my very first and most
Kind of
yeah.
the inventor of the cattle / sheep trailer trucks.
Yeah,
That's pretty cool. Let's see. Did your parents have any favorite family recipes from when you were a kid? Do you have any favorite recipes your parents made? Or your
well,
mom?
I don't follow any of the recipes my mom made because I didn't pay enough attention to know, but I know that there was a couple of things that I really liked, and one of them was she used to open up a can of Spam and slice diagonal slices both directions, about 1/4 of an inch apart, and then stuff cloves in it where they intersected. So the whole top of this thing was stuffed with cloves, and then she poured this really cool, some kind of what would you call it? A dressing
or a glaze or a gravy or
yeah, something like that over the top, and then just bake it for maybe half an hour, I think it was, and then cut it up in little slices, and that was so good. Today, people think Spam is something like wow, but I don't know.
I don't know. Me and Carrie like Spam, so.
Oh, okay.
Did you guys move around a lot growing up, or did you mainly stay in Ogden?
We just stayed in Ogden. We lived in that one house forever until I was out of high school. Bonnie and I got married. We moved to Roy, but after living in different apartments in Ogden, basement apartment, Battlefords. We lived in there for about 6 months, and then some reason we moved, and we lived. It was a little apartment above the bowling alley office that was by the overhead. I mean, there was an Ogden sign over the river bridge. That's like almost where the bowling alley was. Well, we moved from Paddlefords up to this little apartment above the bowling alley, and that I don't know why we did that, but it was fun anyway, because we could watch all the people out of our window, all the people coming to the drive-in, and yeah, it was kind of like watching TV, watching all these people come and go. And then after those apartments and 1 or 2 others, we ended up buying a house in Roy, so we moved to Roy. And then my folks decided after my dad, I think they closed the clothing store. My dad lived in or worked at Levin's Clothing, and Joe Levin and Jenny were the couple that owned the store. And they were really a high class couple. Man, that couple was right up there with the biggest of all of them. And I guess after so long, they closed the store. So my dad, being one of the clerks and also the window trimmer, had to find another job. So they moved to Idaho, and he worked for Clicks radio station, radio and TV. And his job was art director. So he made the signs and everything that they used back then, because there was not such a thing as big deal television stuff going on, because they were barely starting television back then. So he would make a sign and put it on an easel, and they would take pictures of that sign. And then that's how they showed it on their TV, because TV was so kind of really, I don't know, how would you say it? More like a picture radio, I guess.
If you could give your younger self some advice, what would it be?
Myself?
Yeah, like, so if you were to look back from now to your younger self.
Oh, my younger self.
Would you give what advice would you give to your younger self if you could go back in time?
I can't think of anything that I planned myself by giving myself advice, because things just happened for me as I was growing up. And one thing had happened, and I'd go ahead and do that, and something else had happened, I'd do that. And like all my jobs were just handed to me without me even thinking about, well, let's see, I got to go do this, I got to go do that. Let me think if there was anything else. Nope, even singing was just handed to me, because I wasn't thinking about wanting to be a singer in a choir or even otherwise. So one of the guys I was working with, he said, "Hey, Ron, why don't you come and join the Oratorio Society?" I said, "What's that?" He told me, it's a singing group of non-denominational people that sing religious songs and some Christmas songs, and then every fall or winter, just before Christmas, we go to Israel. Or no, not every fall. Sorry, we can't turn that back.
It's okay.
Anyway, we sing in the Bibby Gardner Hall, and the audience is just the local neighbors. And so I thought, that sounds good, but maybe someday, I told him. And he said, well, you really need to come and start now, because next year we're going to Israel, and we're going to sing it in Tel Aviv and in Jerusalem. I thought, wow, that got to be a really great experience. And how much is it going to cost to go to Israel? He said, just $200. And I thought, oh man, that is a really worth it for sure. So I joined the Oratorio Society, and after a little while, they even had me be the guy that checks people in and takes their dues and gives them a receipt. So that made it even be better since I was on the board now. And it's been a very good experience. And I started in '81, and I'm still singing.
Yep. I went and watched you the first time this last Christmas. It was awesome.
Yeah.
So I think the kids and my sisters will be joining us next year. So
Okay, awesome.
so, I really enjoyed this, getting to learn more about you. You were one of my best friends. And I really appreciate everything you do for me.
Okay,
And
well, hey, that turned
yeah,
out to be a
so
really great interview. Thank you,
yeah.
Josh. I
And I
appreciate
think
you
I'm
doing it.
gonna get a digital voice recorder and start recording our hunting conversations because
Oh,
some of your
well,
stories are
yeah.
hilarious, and we probably didn't even touch on a tenth of the stuff that you've told me on hunts that just crack me up. Anyways, thanks for taking the time.
Oh,
Really
for
appreciate
sure.
it.
Thank you for doing it. You guys, it's awesome that you
Yeah.
find all this cool equipment. And
Phones and ring lights.
yeah.
All right.